To continue today with the government intervention. Okay, yesterday we looked at how we categorize government intervention. We can categorize it according to market-based policy and command and control policies, right? Market-based policy aim to provide incentives or disincentives to direct market activity, while command and control are rules and regulations by the government. Also, besides these two, government can do moral suasion. Moral suasion is like education. Okay, it is government trying to persuade consumers or producers towards the behavior that the government would like them to have. Okay, it's like your project work, educating the people, right? That one, education. Campaigns to, for example, campaigns to persuade certain behavior like your car-free day, to discourage people from driving, to have carpooling, as well as anti-drink driving, especially during festive season. You don't want people to drink and drive. Okay, that will cause unnecessary accidents and all that. So these are different ways that the government can use to persuade. All right, so generally government use this, okay? And we are going to go through one by one of them. Okay, starting with taxation. Taxation is market-based. Are you listening? It's a market-based policy whereby government want to use taxation and serve as a disincentive for people not to indulge in certain activity, right? Taxation by the government can be used for production as well as consumption. Okay, people, are you listening? Taxation, the diagram used under production is the same taxation diagram you use under consumption. All right? So I'm only going to do for the example that I'm going to use is for production. Maybe it's the quantity of paper produced that cause negative externality, all right, pollution, all right. So this is the diagram that we stopped at yesterday. There's a divergence between your MSC and your MPC, okay? The socially optimal level of output is smaller than the output that the private firms would like to produce. That's a deadweight loss. Okay? Society wants fewer paper to be produced. Okay, but the firms would like more. All right? So government must come in. What do? They do taxation. Right? When they want to tax, the question is, how much should they tax? What do you think? Okay, they will want to tax the amount, the M equals to the MEC per unit. The indirect tax per unit should be equal to the MEC, the marginal efficient cost. Okay, so government will tax equal to the MEC. If the government do that, what will happen to this diagram? When the government do that, okay, the MEC is equal to the indirect tax per unit. You are actually doing this, okay? See here, everybody. The government place the tax equals to your MEC. Your marginal private cost will shift to the left. Okay, because now each firm got to pay government tax. They are incurring more costs. Their marginal private costs increase. It will shift to the left until it coincide with the MSC, right? So in this case, we call it internalization of the MEC, right? You make the firms pay for the pollution that they produce, right? Okay? And when the government impose the tax, okay, after that, the firms have to pay more, MPC goes up, they will find that they will produce less. Where will they produce? They will produce at QS. All right, no longer at the original QP, but at QP1. Okay, where the new MPC1, intersect with the MPB. All right. So at this level, the deadweight loss, okay, is taken care of. Okay, now they are producing lesser. What are some advantages of your taxation? Now we see that these external costs can be priced. Yeah, you can put a value on the MEC, okay, and make the polluters pay for it. This is what we call it can be internalized, especially if the tax cannot be easily passed on to the consumer. Okay, this is going to be useful. Okay, and taxes are flexible. All right, the taxes can be adjusted to better reflect the MEC. If the MEC is large, the tax rate can be high. Similarly, if the MEC is small, okay, the tax can be lower. Okay, so as what we say is a market-based policy which allows the individual to pursue their self-interest. Okay, it directs the people who want to pollute, they have to think twice. If I want to pollute, I must be prepared to pay taxation. Okay, so do I want to pollute so much? All right. Of course, taxation also comes with disadvantages. All right, there's a difficulty in measuring the external costs. If you think about it, it is very difficult for the government to put a monetary value on pollution. Yes, we know that there is pollution. Okay, we know that people lose their income, but exactly how much? It's easy to draw the MEC diagram, the externality diagram, and then say that the tax is equals to the MEC, but in real life, it's very hard for the government to calculate the accurate value of this MEC. Therefore, this will usually lead to over-taxation and under-taxation. So during tutorial, we will look more into this, okay? And sometimes, or usually, it is not able to use different tax rate for different firms. Okay, different firms, as we know, have different pollution. They produce at different levels, so their pollution levels are different. But it's quite impossible to have a different tax rate for all the firms. We can have the same tax rate perhaps for the firms, but it's very challenging to have a different tax rate for all the different firms. Okay, and when you want to implement taxation, administrative costs, implementation costs will be high. Government need to let the people know what is the tax rate. People need to know. The companies need to know. They have to implement it. Government must also make sure that they collect the tax from the companies. All these require money. All right. So this is your taxation, market-based policy. Let us move on to rules and regulations or legislation. This is a kind of command and control that the government can do, all right? And these rules and regulations or legislations refers to prescribed outcomes, actions, procedures that will have a direct influence on the transaction or output level the authorities consider socially optimal for the market, right? So what does it mean? Give you some example. LTA can come in to limit the vehicle population growth, right? They set the limit. About how many cars do they want on the road? Okay, accordingly, yeah, shh. Don't create a negative externality here. Okay, shh. Okay, so they can control the outcome, yeah? Or if the government deems certain products to be really bad, they can actually ban the products, right? This is a command and control, rules and regulation. Government say you cannot say no. You can go to jail for that, you know, right? Okay, so as you know, in Singapore, certain things are banned, like weapons, okay? Because they cause harm, okay? And people must adhere to it. If you are found to be a weapon, okay, you can be charged, right? Yeah, so these are command and control. So rules and regulations are, okay, what are some advantages and disadvantages of using rules and regulations and legislation by the government? generally speaking, okay, some advantage, as you can see, is very easy. The government say what? You have to comply. There's this ease of compliance. Okay, people wouldn't want to get into trouble with the law, right? Okay, and the government, the market quantity QP is predetermined by the government. So there's a higher chance of it to coincide with the socially optimal level of output. So government have their statistical unit. They can hopefully, identify the socially desirable outcome, and they can, legislate, give regulation in such a way that the socially optimal outcome is reached. Whether it's production or consumption, both production and consumption, the government can use this, okay? Some disadvantages is that the compliances cost can be high, okay? Legal restrictions actually remove the ability for the parties involved, the freedom to make personal choices, okay? So I want to buy this, but government don't allow. I want to produce this, but government don't allow, okay? So this is the disadvantages. The predetermined level of output may not be accurately determined. Why? Because government may not have the full set of information. Okay, they also have constraint. Therefore, the intended socially optimal level of output may not be, materialized. Okay, so these are the general advantages and disadvantages of rules and regulations. There are some command and control methods by the government, okay, that we are going to discuss further, okay, and the first one is quota, right? Quota can be used for production, can be used for consumption, okay? So quota is a quantity restriction, all right? So again, it's set by the government. So consumers and producers could be prohibited by law from consuming or producing more than the allocative efficient output. Okay? So government is the one to set the quota, okay, to be consumed or produced. Here we are talking about negative externality. So too much is being produced or consumed. So government can set a quota, all right? And the fear of penalties ensures that the consumers and the producers abide by the legislation. They don't want to be fined. They don't want to be thrown to jail. They don't want to get implicated, right? Keep yourself clean, have a good record, right? If you want to have, good future, yeah? And therefore, they will adhere to the legislation. Okay, so this is how the government can ensure that the socially optimal output will be attained. All right, diagrammatically, how does it look like? Okay, I'm using the example of production here. Quantity of paper produced. Too much paper is produced at QP. Society wants only QS to be produced. There's a deadweight loss because MSC now is much bigger than your MPC, right? So this is the deadweight loss. And if you are the government and you want the socially optimal level of output, okay, in the market, where will you set the quota? You will want to set the quota at, you will want to set the quota at QS, right? Okay? If you are the government and you know where is the socially optimal level of output, you will set the quota to be at QS. Okay? So when the government set the quota to be at QS, yeah, firms got no choice but to produce there. So your QP prime, your new level of output by the firms, will be at the socially optimal level of output. And the deadweight loss is eliminated. Okay? So this is your quota system. Yeah? What are some advantages? Okay? Assuming that the QS can be determined and is accurate, the socially desirable outcome is being assured. Very nice, okay? And there is ease of implementation and monitoring, right? You identify the government identify the QS and set the output level to be there, okay? But the disadvantages is that many a times the government get it wrong. They think that they get it correct, but many a times it's not like that. The QS may be too much or too little. there will still be over or under consumption. Okay, that one we look at it when we do the tutorial questions. Okay, so there's no incentive to reduce external costs. Firms just need to comply with the quota. Government say what, you do what. Okay, the firms really got no incentive to reduce the external costs. Okay, so this quota, the example that we see is for production. Of course, we can use it for consumption, right? For example, cars, COE, okay, all that is also a quota system. That one, we will look at it perhaps during tutorial, okay? So it's the same diagram that you draw, whether it's for consumption or production. Just keep in mind that if you're drawing for consumption, when you label your x-axis, it must be quantity of whatever good consumed, okay? But the mechanism is the same. All right, there's another command and control policy, which is the tradable permit. Be careful here, tradable permit is only for production. You may want to write it in your notes, put a note there. This is only for production. Just now quota can use for consumption, can use for production, right? This one is only for production. Okay, what does tradable permit do? Tradable permit is aimed at reducing pollution from industrial activities. Sorry, I think there's a typo there. Okay, so the government issues firms with permits on the maximum level of pollution they are allowed to emit. Government will look at the pollution that they want, okay, for the country, and they decide on the permits to be issued to the firms. All right, the firms then can buy or sell the permits to each other. Okay, let's say, for example, in the carbon market, whereby a lot of pollution results from the production, right, the activity. Okay, so how does it look like? It looks like that. Look at the supply curve. It is a vertical straight line. What is this? This is the market for tradable permit. Okay, together with the demand, which is the normal downward sloping curve, right? And with the supply, since the supply of the permit is determined by the government, according to how much pollution the government can allow in the country, they will determine the number of permits, okay? And when the demand cut supply, that is the price. So let's say the supply cut P1, the supply, the red color one cut D1, okay, original demand curve price is at P1, okay? But along the way, let's say the economy grow and the firms want to increase their production, okay, you will see that demand will increase. When demand increase, the demand for your permit must also increase because you want to produce more, you have to buy more permit, right? So demand will shift from D1 to D2. What will happen? The price of the permit will increase from P1 to P2. So with the same quantity of permits, producers are actually paying more for pollution, okay, because they have to pay for the permits. So with the supply fixed at Q, the price of these permits will go up from P1 to P2. And that is how the government can make the firms pay for the pollution. And the government is the one to decide on the quantity of your permits, right? How many permits decided by the government? How they decide? It is associated with the socially desirable level of output as your QS in your quota diagram, the previous one that we see. All right? So this is the market for your tradable permits. You may ask, how does it correct your market failure? Well, if a firm emits pollution below its permitted limit, it can sell its rights to pollute, okay, the tradable permits to other firms. So when the government allows for this, if the firm don't pollute so much, they can sell their permits to other firms. This will help to create incentives for firms to pollute less, right? Because you can get money. Money is received from the sale of permits. There are two ways for firms to pollute less. First, they produce less. If you produce less, you don't need so many permits. All right? Okay? Second, you find ways to reduce pollution. For example, looking for cleaner methods of production. Right? So if you use cleaner methods, you are polluting less. The total number of permits issued by the government should coincide. Okay, should lah, because hopefully the government have full information. If they do, it should coincide with the socially optimal level of production. Okay, it will work just like the quota. And when the firm adopt cleaner methods of production, your MEC is also reduced. So this is how your tradable permits can correct your market failure, okay, caused by negative externalities only for production. Okay, so if you want, you can quickly take a photo snapshot of this, okay, because I think this is not really in the notes. Okay, anyway, this if you go to SLS under market failure, okay, under government intervention, this one is also there, right? Okay. So let's continue. What are the advantages of this tradable permit? The total number of permits can be easily adjusted to reduce total pollution, okay, set by the government. That's why easily adjusted. Government say what? The number of permits is what is being sold in the market. The price of the permit is market determined. Just now we saw the demand and supply. The higher demand, the higher the price. Okay, there is therefore an inbuilt incentive for firms to be less pollutive. You don't want to pay so much, right, for your permit. You make sure that you don't pollute so much. The disadvantage is that the initial distribution of permits can be unfair. Yeah. Later on, when those who pollute less can sell to firms, the firms that pollute less can sell to the firms that pollute more. Okay, but the initial distribution may be unfair, so that is a disadvantage. Okay, and there can be fines for non-compliances. The fines for non-compliances must be high so that people will make sure that they pay for the permits to pollute, to produce. Okay. Another command and control is nationalization. Okay, for production also only. So you may want to study this, it's only for production. Okay, when the government take public ownership of existing firms producing goods with negative externalities, okay, government take over. Nationalization, that means government take over the production, okay. The aims of the government is to maximize social welfare, ensure that the production takes place at the socially optimal level, okay. And this is used when the other measures fail, or you can see as the deadweight loss is very large, the external cost is very high. Okay, so high, so much pollution that the government must take over, must nationalize and take over and produce. All right. Advantage is that, yeah, when the government take over, definitely government's job is to maximize welfare. Welfare objectives can be easily met. There is ease of monitoring of output because government is doing the output, the production, all right? But the disadvantage is that usually when government take over, it will cause a burden on the government budget. And we know that generally government bodies are more inefficient perhaps than the private enterprises. More bureaucracy, more layers. Yeah, so these are some of the disadvantages. Okay, another thing for negative externality as a command and control policy is to assign property rights. This is a cost theorem. All right, what does it say? It says that as long as the transaction costs are low, property rights are clearly defined and enforced, negotiation between two parties will bring about socially optimal level of output, okay, even when there's externality. Okay, maybe give you an example, okay, that how it will work. Okay, does this look familiar to you, the haze situation in Singapore? All right, so we do know that Singapore can get haze, okay, caused by maybe Indonesian farmers using the slash and burn techniques to clear their own land. And the haze and the ashes cause pollution in Singapore. Okay, so if the international court can assign the air over Singapore, here we're talking about assigning property rights. If you can assign the air over Singapore to the Singapore government, then Indonesia will have to pay Singapore whenever they cause haze. Of course, we don't have this, all right, but if, okay, we can say that the air over Singapore belongs to Singapore and anybody that pollute the air, therefore the person must pay for it. Okay, so this is what we mean by the cost theorem assigning property rights. Okay, the advantage is that a more socially desirable outcome can be achieved. Okay, it's driven by market forces. When people know that they have to pay for the air that they pollute, okay, they will be more serious, okay, in making sure that they do not cause pollution. All right. The disadvantage really is it's very difficult to judge who is responsible. You can say that the farmers are responsible, but are the farmers really responsible? Do they have other choice? Okay, is it they do that because it's also very consumer driven? Consumers are the people who want the product, okay? So if you have been reading the newspaper articles about the haze issue cost theorem, you will know that it is not so easy to say that the person who burned is held responsible, right? And how is the compliance going to be ensured? The farmers, the people who burn, is not exactly in Singapore. Will they comply with the laws? So there are also many issues, disadvantages, all right? Next one, we can try to discourage activities. Let's say in this case it's consumption, right? Consumption of alcohol, anti-drink driving, okay, through moral suasion. Okay, we know that during festive season, people love to drink and party, right? Okay, but that one, if you drive when you drink, it's going to be very dangerous. So government can persuade. Actually, they do. There's a lot of public education on this during festive season, right? A lot of advertisement on newspaper, television, media platforms to remind people to not drink and drive at the same time. Okay, at the same time didn't come out, I don't know why. Okay, so yeah, government can use education, moral suasion to encourage people towards certain outcomes, right? Whether it's a consumption or production, okay? What are some limitations, evaluation of using public education to reach the socially optimal level of consumption or production? Really, it is a very long-drawn process. It usually involves changing mindsets, and as you know, mindset cannot be changed easily. Okay? The effectiveness depends on whether the information disseminated is seen as credible or not. Okay, so there are constraints, right, in using moral suasion. So during lecture, I only have time to give you one example. Of course, there are many, many, many examples of how government can use advertisement, campaigns, okay, to change the mindset of people. All right. And we're done for negative externality. Wow. Okay, so let's move on to positive externality. So now we are looking at positive externality and government intervention. Okay, so positive externality is like the opposite of negative externality. Okay, positive externality can result from production. Okay, can result from consumption. Okay, and definitely government will come in to intervene. All right. Okay, so let me start with production. Okay, so what is positive externality? Positive externality gives rise to external benefit, which arises when individual actions generate benefits to a third party without the latter having to pay for them. Okay, so these are additional benefits enjoyed by people other than the producer or consumer. Okay, just now when we talk about negative externality, we use the word cost, external costs. Now we are talking about positive externality, so we are talking about external benefits. All right. Okay, so let's start with production. This one is same. For production and consumption, we use the same diagram when we talk about positive externality. So that is when you are drawing the diagram, you must be very careful. If the question is on production, make sure that you label the x-axis as quantity of whatever produced. Okay, if you are talking about consumption, then it will be quantity of whatever consumed. All right. Okay, I'll be doing both. All right. Okay. So if we are talking about production, okay, let's say the owner of a retail store decides to build a better drainage system, okay, to avoid flooding to his store, right? So when deciding, he will take into consideration of his own MPB. How much does it cost him to build the drainage system? Okay, the financial amount of damages to his goods that could have been prevented. Okay, I rewind. I say this again. He will think about his own marginal private benefit from taking up this or building this drainage system. Okay, if he build this drainage system, he can prevent damages to his own goods. Okay, so this is a benefit to himself, private benefit. Also, when he build the drainage system, he can be protected, right, from having a better drainage system so that his potential revenue from sales due to better environment will be there. He can earn more money, more revenue, more profits. Okay? And at the same time, he need to consider the cost of producing this or building this drainage system, which is actually his marginal private cost. Okay, so the marginal private cost is the cost of building the drainage. All right, so again, we are using the the MPB cut with the MPC, right? Your cost benefit analysis. Here, we are talking about the quantity of drainage produced. So, for the person, okay, the MPC will be the cost of production, the cost of building the drainage. For the MPB, it is the damages that could have been prevented, the potential increase in the revenue. So when your MPB cut with your MPC, that is the quantity produced, QP. All right, that is the market output. Okay, but when he built the drainage system, there are external benefits accruing to society at the same time. The better drainage system will benefit the neighboring retail stores, okay, that would be protected from flooding. Okay, so this is your external benefit. Okay, so all the financial amount of damages of goods that could have been prevented, the potential revenue from sales, not by the person who built the drainage system, but by people nearby who can enjoy, okay, because your neighbor is the one who built it. Okay, you are also protected from the flood. Okay, so now we see that your MSB is equal to your MPB plus your MEB. Your MSB is not equal to your MPB because you now generate a positive externality. There's a divergence between your MSB and your MPB by the amount of your MEB. Okay, so the MEB are all the damages that could have been prevented, the potential increase in revenue by other retail stores. Okay, so your MSB, your marginal social benefit, is higher than your marginal private benefit by the amount of your marginal external benefit. All right. Here we assume that MEC is 0 because we are only interested in looking at the positive externality. So we keep MEC to be 0. MPC is equal to your MSC since your MEC is 0. Okay, we are talking about positive externality here. So what happened is that society would want more to be produced. Okay, when MSB cut with your MSC, that's the socially optimal level of output. Okay, it is more than the market output QP. Okay, there is underproduction. All right, and as you can see, since MSB, the blue color line, is bigger than your MSC, okay, the black color one, okay, there is allocative inefficiency. Allocative inefficiency is when MSB equals to MSC, right? And therefore, we have the dead weight loss, all right? So, what is the market failure here? The market failure is caused by the existence of your positive externalities. All right, the existence of your positive externality causes a divergence between your private benefit and your social benefit, okay, leading to deadweight loss, okay, and there is a underproduction of the market. There's allocative inefficiency, therefore the market has failed. All right. So that is the market failure caused by positive externality, okay, underproduction, okay. So now I'm going to go through an example with you of a positive externality in consumption, right? We are using the same diagram, but the specific examples for your MEB, MSB, MPB are all different. And very importantly, even though you are drawing the same set of diagram, your x-axis must accurately display what you're trying to explain, whether is it for production or consumption, okay? So now let's take an example of a consumer. He decides to consume medical services, okay, vaccination to improve his own health. So when, let's say you want to take vaccination, when you are taking vaccination, what do you consider? You consider your own marginal private benefit. You take the vaccination so that you don't get the disease. Maybe flu vaccination so that you will not get the flu. Okay, so that you can continue working, or for you, continue studying and study harder than your friends so that you can do better. Okay, for adults, it will be the additional income that they can earn, okay, from the better health. Okay, if you're always sick, okay, if you're bedridden, how to work, right? So this is your marginal private benefit. You will also consider the cost of the vaccination. Is it expensive or cheap? Okay, can you afford it? Okay, so this is your marginal private cost. Okay, the cost of consuming the vaccination. Okay, so from your perspective, okay, whether how many vaccination you take, you look at your marginal private benefit and your marginal private cost. And when your marginal private benefit cut with your marginal private cost, right? Okay, you get the QP, right? So MPC is the cost of consuming the vaccination. MPB is the benefit, like lower chances of getting the disease, additional income that you can earn, okay? And this is how you decide how much to consume in the market. This is the market consumption, okay? Summation for everybody, right? Okay? But when you consume vaccination, when an private individual consume vaccination, the vaccine will also benefit other members of society. Okay, when you are healthy, there's a lesser chance for people around you to get the disease, right? So lesser chance of getting the disease means that you will not fall sick, or people around you will not fall sick. There'll be higher income earned from, higher productivity, savings in your medical costs. All these are your external benefits, okay? So from society's point of view, right, there is this positive externality, your marginal external benefit in terms of the savings in the medical costs, okay, caused by healthier people living among you, because the healthier people, the people living among you go for vaccination, right? The income earned that you earn, okay, because you did not fall sick, because the people around you take vaccination and did not spread the disease to you. Okay, so society sees that this is good. What is good? You being vaccinated is good. So the marginal social benefit is higher than your marginal private benefit, right? And there's a divergence between our MSB and our MPB by the amount of the MEB. Okay, so where's the socially optimal level of output of consumption? Socially optimal level is when your MSB is equal to your MSC. Okay, the blue color MSB equals to your MSC here. All right, so again, we assume that MEC is 0 because now we are concentrating on your positive externality. We're only looking at the MSB and MPB, all right, and MEB. We assume MEC is 0 so that our MPC is equal to our MSC, all right. So the socially optimal level of output is at QS, okay. QS is more than QP. Society wants QS to be consumed, okay. Therefore, there is a underconsumption. Okay? And since our MSB, the blue color one, the blue color line, okay, is bigger than our MSC, right? There is allocative inefficiency, okay, there is deadweight loss, okay, and this is why the market failed. The existence of your positive externalities causes a divergence between your private benefit and social benefit, leading to the deadweight loss to society from the underconsumption in the market. Therefore, there's allocative inefficiency and the market has failed. Okay? So, what do the government do? Now that the market has failed, government must come into the picture to intervene to ensure that the socially optimal level of consumption or production, okay, is being attained, right? So remember your broad approaches. We have the market-based policies, okay? We have the command and control policies. We have the moral suasion and the education, okay? These three things, okay, the government can do, right? So let's start with the market-based policy, okay? That is to give subsidies to the producers or the consumers, okay, to produce or consume more, all right? So this serves as an incentive for them, okay, to want to produce or consume more, okay? So how much subsidy should the government give? The government should give a per unit subsidy that is equal to the MEB. Okay, I think there's a typo here. Let me change this, okay, otherwise can be. Yes, okay, all right. So subsidy can be given to either producers or consumer, right? Okay, so let's talk about drainage produce. Okay, so here we start from the situation whereby there is a positive externality, okay, and the deadweight loss, okay, there is the red triangle there, okay. So the socially optimal level of output is at QS, but only QP is being produced. All right, so the government can come in to subsidize, okay, subsidize for the drainage, okay, production. Okay, so when the government come in to subsidize, how much to subsidize? The subsidy per unit should be here. Okay, so here, what the government do is to subsidize, and you see that the private cost will shift. Okay, now the private cost will be lowered since a subsidy is given by the government. So your private cost will shift from MPC, okay, to the right, okay, until MPC prime, okay, which is equal to the MPC plus your subsidy. Okay, so at this level, the socially optimal level is reached. Okay, and QP prime of drainage is being produced. All right. Okay, so this is another slide just to show you that the subsidy is your MEB. Okay, and when that happens, your marginal private cost will shift to the right. Okay, what's this one? I think will show the animation, right? It will shift to the right, okay, until the socially desirable quantity is being reached, QS. All right. Okay, it will bring your MPC down. It's cheaper, government subsidized. Okay, so what are some advantages? The advantage is that this is market-based, all right. It rewards the first party for generating positive externality to the third party. Subsidize, it kind of reward them, right? Reduce their costs. It is adjustable to match the magnitude of externality, okay, if they can really identify the correct amount, the government, okay. The disadvantage is that whenever the government gives a subsidy, it incurs costs to the government, right? And many a times, the government do not know the exact amount to subsidize. They either over-subsidize or under-subsidize. So this one, we'll look at it during our tutorials, okay? Whenever the government over-subsidize or under-subsidize, then we cannot have the perfect QS, the socially optimal level of output, and sometimes the deadweight loss may not be totally eliminated, okay, or it may be bigger or smaller. We will do this during the tutorial, we will see, okay? So that is the disadvantage of using subsidies, all right? Okay, just now the example that we look at is for production, but take note, you can also use it for consumption. For example, consuming healthcare, consuming education, you can also use the same diagram, all right? So during lecture, we'll only do one diagram, okay? But that same set of diagram can be used for both production or consumption, depending on the question. And make sure you label your x-axis accurately, okay? All right. Let's move on to the next one, supplementing the product. Okay, because now we are talking about positive externality whereby there is an underproduction. Okay, to ensure that the socially optimal level is being reached, the government can come in to provide part of the market supply. Okay, such that, you know, more is produced, let's say, in the market. Okay. One example is how in Singapore the government come in to provide for medical services, building of hospitals to make sure that, you know, the supply is there. Okay. Education is another one. Okay. When there's under, let's say, production, government come in directly to produce. Your HDB flat, okay, is also, you can see as maybe perhaps before that under, not enough, but it gives off positive externality. So government can come in to supplement the market, okay? Advantage is that there's direct provision by the government to ensure that the underconsumption or the underproduction would be corrected, yeah? And the disadvantage is that it may lead to inefficiency and poor standards of service due to a lack of profit maximization incentive, right? Government, usually their objective is to welfare maximize, right? You learn under market structure that only maybe private firms are profit maximizing. So because of that, government in most places, okay, they are not as efficient and the standard may not be as good, right? Like what we said just now, there's a lot of bureaucracy and all that. Okay, so that can become a disadvantage. Okay, and definitely when the government comes in, okay, to provide, to produce, okay, there will be an additional strain on the government budget. Okay, you learn about opportunity costs, you learn about government budget. Okay, if the government do not have enough funds, where do they put their money in, right? And the money is actually from the taxpayers, okay? So many a times, besides giving subsidy, besides using command and control policies, government can also use moral suasion, education towards achieving a better whether it's a production or consumption, all right, depending on what the government wants in which area. Okay, so this is just an example of what the government has done, the National Step Challenge. Okay, there are many things in this National Step Challenge, right? Is to create awareness and publicize the challenge and the Healthy 365 app. Okay, very interesting way. There are many things happening here. You encourage people to eat healthy. When you go kopitiam and you what you call that, eat healthy, right? You get that QR code, you scan, then you can accumulate points, yeah? Accumulate points and get NTUC voucher. You walk, don't know, 10,000 steps a day or what, you can accumulate. So depending, Yeah, bear in mind that in Singapore, aging population, high diabetics rate, okay, very unhealthy eating. So the government can use campaigns like that, initiatives like that to motivate people, to persuade people towards healthier eating. Okay, like what I say, depending, you must read the question. Okay, maybe to motivate them not to drink Coca-Cola so much, drink healthier drinks, then they can get the points and that one, and get NTUC voucher. So these are ways that the government can persuade people, okay, indirectly educate them to live a healthier lifestyle. Yeah? Okay, and that's all, the end. We are done for negative and positive externality. Yeah. Next lecture, we will do information failure, right? Information failure. Okay.